Orca, the wolves of the sea. No animal is more intelligent, more majestic, or more controversial.
I'm Linda Brill in Mexico City.
From a Mexican amusement park to the frigid waters of Iceland to Washington's San Juan Island. Meet the real Free Willy and a Northwest man with a plan to save his life. It's an exclusive special report on killer whales. They're at the top of their food chain. Should they be the top bill at a sea circus?
Free Orca, starting Tuesday on King 5 News at 11. Some things are clearly native to Mexico. The faces, the flavors, and the fabrics. But one of Mexico's most valued treasures is definitely foreign. Keiko, the killer whale, captured from the icy waters of Iceland, was brought to sunny Mexico 9 years ago. He delights the crowds at Reino Aventura, a Mexico City amusement park. Keiko is the only killer whale in all of Mexico. He's become a national treasure, and now he's become a national movie star. Keiko was the star of the hit movie Free Willy, the story of a captive whale set free. And now the Hollywood spotlight has opened eyes about his real-life problems. Keiko is very sick. At 3.5 tons, he's severely underweight by 2 tons. The teenager paces in a dirty pool that's much too small. And despite the chlorine and the salt additives, the Mexican waters are much too hot. He's developed a skin rash that may be contagious, so other parks won't take him. Now, a Washington state biologist has a plan to set Keiko free.
Well, it's entirely possible that we could put an anchor there and one on the reef and then one over in front of our place and have the biggest pen in the world for him.
Research biologist Ken Balcom knows wild whales like the back of his hand.
We'll be along with him, but yeah, there's the male.
Balcom heads the Center for Whale Research on San Juan Island. He plans to rehabilitate Keiko in cool salt water and then, through DNA samples, locate Keiko's family in Iceland and eventually reunite Keiko with his Icelandic pod.
It's not ridiculous at all. You can find his family. His mom might be dead already, but undoubtedly he has brothers and sisters and relatives that are still alive.
Balcom's Free Keiko campaign has raised $4,000 so far, but the plan's total price tag is $3.7 million. Freeing Keiko would also be an expensive precedent. Aquatic parks all over the world, including SeaWorld, are pressuring the Mexicans to keep Keiko right where he is. If Keiko is set free, other theme parks may be pressured to release their captive whales. SeaWorld Incorporated, the world leader in captive whales, has agreed to install cooling equipment in Keiko's Mexican pool. SeaWorld is against setting him free. And in Mexico, Keiko's owners are listening to SeaWorld's arguments. What do you think would happen to Keiko if he were set free in the ocean?
I think he's going to die.
Keiko is going to die no matter what. His natural lifespan is probably 29 to 50. In captivity, he's probably not going to make it to age 21, even in the best conditions.
How can Keiko is going to find his food? Keiko has been, whenever we know when he's hungry, we feed him, we treat him. I mean, it's completely dependent on humans.
And what does Keiko want? He tells us, in a way, by grinding his teeth to a pulp on his concrete pool. It's a sad testimony from the star of a movie about freedom. In Mexico City, Linda Brill, King 5 News.
Orca, the wolves of the sea. No animal is more intelligent or more majestic. 97 killer whales live in our waters, but could our activities be driving them away? In part 2 of an exclusive special report, King 5 visits another Northwest treasure, a family dedicated to preserving Puget Sound's killer whales. You've heard of Free Willy. This is Willy. Free.
Free Orca, starting Tuesday on King 5 News at 11.
Tonight on King 5 News, we continue our special series on Free Orca. with a look at the whales which live in our own waters. Puget Sound is one of the only urban areas with resident whales. King 5's Linda Brill introduces us to the Northwest Pods tonight and a family devoted to their preservation.
Killer whales, the wolves of the sea. They can be both fearsome and playful. Perhaps the most intelligent animal in the ocean. They wow us in Hollywood movies. And they entertain us at SeaWorld. But did you know that the original performing whales were captured right here in Northwest waters? They're named J, K, and L pods. 96 killer whales now live in Puget Sound, moving in tight family groups with Mom leading the packs. Killer whales captured the imagination of wildlife artist and photographer Kelly Balcom.
Dave have that one. Should we go see about a mom and a baby?
The spark comes from his dad, whale researcher Ken Balcom. Together, the father-son team runs the Center for Whale Research on San Juan Island.
With spread out like this, the way they're all searching, I'm sure they're just waiting for one of them to find a little cluster of fish, and then they'll go and work them.
Can you tell them apart? The Balcoms can identify a whale from 100 yards away.
Yeah, that's J3.
It's the dorsal fin on the back of the whale, and there's what we call a saddle, the gray pigment area, which is just under the fin. And he has this nice narrow saddle as compared to this relatively broad saddle on J8, the grandmother. Between those two characters, it's a cinch who they are. And we just take the photographs so that we can convince the scientists and the world that this is actually true.
The Balcoms also listen to the calls of the killer whales.
There they are. These are very similar calls, and yet there's some differences in between each.
We hear pops, whistles, and squeals, but Ken and Kelly hear language.
We know for sure that the pods of J, K, and L have their own calls, distinct to their pods. You go to other countries and they have other killer whales, they speak other languages, but they speak language.
But will we ever speak their language, as in the NBC series Sequest, where a dolphin speaks his mind?
Ask him.
How did we meet?
I'd love to have that yellow phone if that really existed, but I don't think we're quite there yet, I don't think.
They started out watching them, and 2 decades later, they're listening to them, and the next thing they'll want to do is talk to them. Why would a Northwest family spend so much of their lives researching whales? Preservation. Do we run the risk in Washington of losing our pods?
Oh, very definitely. By overfishing, by pollutant contamination, by basic runoffs of sewage, yes.
Washington State and the people of Washington should really feel fortunate and somewhat responsible, I would think. I do, personally. For their well-being and for their future.
We're lucky. Puget Sound remains one of the few urban regions in the world with resident orca. And the orca are lucky that a Northwest family is looking over them.
Well, I would like to see them go by in front of my house for the rest of my life. Then I hope my neighbors think likewise.
In the San Juan Islands, Linda Brill, King 5 News.
Orca, the killer whales, the wolves of the sea. No animal is more intelligent, more majestic, or more controversial. Tonight, an exclusive King 5 News report. The campaign to free Corky, an orca captured in British Columbia waters and sold to SeaWorld. They're at the top of the ocean food chain. Should they be the top bill at a sea circus?
Free orca, tonight at 11. The Orca Show is about to begin at SeaWorld in San Diego. Each year, 12 million people pour into SeaWorld's 4 parks.
$17.
At $28 a head, SeaWorld brings in close to $250 million a year. And that doesn't include the Shamu trinkets.
He has earned the name Killer Whale.
The star of the show today is one of SeaWorld's first captive killer whales. Her stage name is Shamu. Her real name is Corky. Corky was captured from Northwest Canadian waters when she was 5 years old. Now a Northwest whale researcher says he's identified her family, and he wants to reunite them. Here they are, Pod A5, off the coast of Vancouver Island. Scientists believe Corky's mother and 2 cousins are still alive.
I've been advocating Corky's release for about 3 years now. I proposed it, the idea at a meeting in Geneva in July of 1990.
Dr. Paul Spong believes Corky could and should be reunited with her family in Northwest waters. He heads ORCA Lab, off of northern Vancouver Island. His group tracks and studies wild killer whales.
This is probably the most closely bonded animal on Earth. These animals literally stay with one another for their entire lives in their close family groups. So what happens when a member who's been away from the family for a long period of time finally comes back into it, I think is something that's very, very exciting to consider.
SeaWorld has considered it, and the answer is no.
She likes her flukes rubbed. This is her favorite thing, is getting her tail rubbed. It's like a foot rub for us.
SeaWorld trainers and Corky have a close bond. They feed the 28-year-old animal 250 pounds of fish each day. They say they're not willing to risk her life by freeing her.
Corky would have to be able to go out and find 225, 250 pounds of food for herself every day. Corky would have to deal with the problems that may be caused by other killer whales failing to accept her or reintegrate her back into some group.
The Free Corky campaign has inspired letters and protests. Now a Seattle lawyer wants to take it to a courtroom. She's filing suit on behalf of Corky's pod. Helga Carr has practiced law for 20 years. She's looking for a legal remedy to Corky's captivity. Jokingly, she calls it writ of habeas corpus. But to her, it's no joke.
What is our law about? Is it not about righting wrongs? Well, wrongs have been done to these whales.
SeaWorld calls Corky an ambassador, helping humans learn about and appreciate her species. Others call Corky a prisoner, being held for profit.
It's money. That's their primary motivation. They use words like research and education to justify what they're doing.
Is an experiment worth risking her life? Or, after all she's given us, does she deserve a chance at freedom? Until it's decided, the show will go on.